we are going to spend some time talking about how to identify the type of genre, and by that I mean the type of media that different sources should be categorized as. With MLA, the way that MLA works is that in order to be able to set up your citation, you need to be able to identify what type of source you are looking at. And so we've spent some time looking at source introductions, how we're going to introduce a source into our essays and in-text citations. We've spent some time looking at how we're going to seek the information that we need to put in our citations. But all of that is pretty obsolete until we know what type of citation we need to set up. So the purpose of this little screen recording is to help you understand how MLA's website works so that you can easily locate the type of source that you need in order to cite. So I'm going to really have us focusing just on two categories, which is the MLA Works Cited electronic sources and other common sources. If you do happen to go to the library and find a print book or find a print journal, then you would want to use these categories. You would want to click on them and open up the different types of print sources so that you are sure to set things up accurately. But more and more, of course, we're moving away from print and we'll mostly be doing our research online. So we're going to focus really on these two categories, electronic sources and other common sources. Emily's really come up with a way to cite almost any type of source that we can think of. I always skip through all this mumbo jumbo at the beginning. It's just confusing, and I just skip to the type of source that I'm looking at. So like I said, in order to accurately implement MLA, what you need to do in order to figure out how your source should be cited is figure out what type of source you're looking at. So if I'm going to be using information from across an entire website, then I would want to cite an entire website, and I can find the information for doing that here. If I need to cite information on a course website or a department website, I can do that here. If I want to cite things from a page on a website, I can find information for doing that here. This is going to be the most popular type of setup that you guys are going to be using. It's like you're finding an article on CNN or something. So just be aware of that. This is probably the one you'll use the most. So as you might have noticed, the way MLA works is it tells you the type of source, then it offers you written instructions for what should go in that citation, and then it provides you an example of what that would look like. So what you want to do is take the information from the source that you are using, and you want to plug in the information from the source that you are using into the setup that they've provided. So moving on, they have a setup for ebooks, they have a setup for images, a setup for articles in web magazines. So this would be something more serial like the New York Times or something. Articles in online scholarly journals. I am going to take a moment here to kind of elaborate a little bit on this type of media, this type of genre, if you're not already familiar. Online scholarly journals, or really any type of scholarly journal, is what we would consider the most credible type of source. In order for one of these articles to get published, they have to go through an extreme process, editorial process. They have to have multiple people look at their work and offer them revisions, and it usually takes months to years before one of these sources are published. So for that reason, sorry, had to stop and plug this baby in. So one of the things about scholarly journal articles is that they have an extremely prohibitive cost. In order to be able to subscribe to one of these journals, it costs between $5,000 and $12,000. So it's not really something that you or me are going to subscribe to. It's something that a college or a university is going to subscribe to, however. So we can often access these as long as we're going through the TSC library databases. We do have a somewhat limited selection, and so I'd also suggest using Google Scholar, but you do want to watch out because once in a while you're going to hit those paywalls where it's going to try to charge you $50, $60 an article, and no one wants to spend that money for school. But I did want to elaborate a little bit on that type of source. Super credible. If you can find them, you definitely want to implement them. They are written by experts for other experts. They're going to have a high level of diction. It's going to be a very advanced vocabulary. You will want to be aware of that, but they're very useful. So moving on, we have emails. A listserv, if you're unfamiliar with what a listserv is, it's basically an email group. So say every one of you, you and your colleagues are in an email group. That would be considered a listserv. And if you're going to use information from that email group discussion, you would cite it as a listserv. Tweets have a specific way of being cited. YouTube videos have a specific way of being cited. Comments, we all know that people love to leave comments on YouTube videos and articles and things like that. If you want to use someone's reaction or the information they provided in a comment, there's a specific way to cite that. So that's really all of the options that are located under the electronic sources tab. And then, like I said, I'd like us to also be familiar with the options under other common sources. These include interviews. So personal interviews would be interviews that you conducted. Published interviews would be interviews that exist somewhere on TV or radio or in a book. And then online only published interviews would be interviews that exist only online and only in a text format. Yeah, okay, so moving on, speeches, lectures, other types of oral presentations, they have their own way of being cited. Panel discussions and question and answers. So anytime someone is setting up an expert panel where these experts are going to debate a certain subject or discuss a certain subject, we could then use the information from that debate or discussion in our research, and we would want to be sure to cite it as a panel discussion. They typically have a Q&A that we might take information from as well. Published conference proceedings. So all the time we're having these conferences about different subjects, whether it be related to sports or medicine, or say it's an Irish medieval history conference. Typically, they archive all of the information from the conference, and so you could find all of the talks and lectures and often panels and things that are happening at the conference. So if you are going to use multiple things from a conference, you would want to cite it as published conference proceedings. Painting, sculptures, and photographs have a specific way of being cited. A song or a whole album, if you're using Spotify, that has a specific way of being cited. Online albums, CDs, films, movies, TV shows. It does matter a little bit the broadcast, the way that TV show or film is broadcast to you. Podcasts, spoken word albums, and then digital files. So this digital files thing is sort of a grab all. So if you find something that sort of eludes all categories that we have seen here, and it's a PDF or it's a JPEG or something like that, then you can just categorize it as a PDF or a JPEG, and that will get the reader the information they need, even though it doesn't neatly fit into like conference proceeding or page on a website. So that covers the genre types we're really going to focus on in this class. Again, these are the ones I think that you will find the most useful. Page on a website is the one I think you're going to end up using the most, although I hope you'll find some scholarly journal articles as well. But this is the area that you'll want to scroll through when you're completing the activity, the identify genre activity, and when it comes time to citing your sources for the proposal.